2021 MLB Rule 4, better known as the amateur draft players. Let's look at the early returns and what should we Dynasty guys do with our 2022 draft picks if our teams are around the 500 mark right now. It's time for Dinger!
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats, what's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement, check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see, what's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head, please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers, ain't no minor league, this is major, yeah. Dingers, let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just Oscar Gonzalez that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs joined again, as always, by Robbie Baseball in the murder room. What's happening, Robbie?
Living life to the fullest. How are you?
You know what's awesome? I haven't screwed up my name in like forever.
In a long time. You have it down.
Yeah, it's like I'm really proud of myself.
Really got that name down.
The baby's good. She's sleeping and pooping everywhere. You know, that's what babies do.
Classic.
She's basically the Los Angeles Angels bullpen. Ooh, too soon.
Okay.
But the reality is life got busy there for a little bit of lack of sleep, but you know we're hanging in there. There's worse things in life, that's for sure.
Well, at least you're heading into the summer now. So as the weather heats up, you'll be able to enjoy it as a family, and life will be good. It's not heading into the winter.
Not great for my golf game though. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely a byproduct is going to be like really bad golf all summer.
Virtual golf, or you're gonna start to be the guy who goes out to the driving range and like, I just want to hit a bucket of balls, man. That's all I got time for.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. I'm actually just like really. I'm already committed. I already have the plastic clubs for the little guy. I'm committed to making him a golfer so that I have the excuse to go. Like that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I've got a golf course 2 minutes down the road from me, and I'm like, well, if that's not where he has his first job, which is fine because they're one of those Gulf North properties, so they pay minimum wage and ask everybody to do everything. So I'm like, it's not necessarily the best place to go, but it's still, he could go there, then that's where I can end up with some free golf. But I'm not swinging sticks anymore. And I mean, I used to. Smitty actually stopped by from our home league. Smitty stopped by my house yesterday, and he was like, glad to see you're actually working. Because I was, of course, doing boat stuff.
Was he there to pick up his golf rack?
I showed it to him, and he's like, that's a lot bigger than I thought it would be. So the backstory for everybody is that about 2 years ago, I started to make something for him and then started to reorganize my shop, and I haven't touched it since. My putter is still inside it because I used the putter to be like, okay, you can get 7 putters across and 3 pairs of shoes. It's just supposed to be this little cabinet that he can put his golf shoes and putters in, so it looks cool. And I still haven't finished it, but based on what he said yesterday, I think I might have to trim it a little bit, make it a little thinner or whatever. But yeah, so he stopped by, which was good. And for us, Ty, in our hot debate, whatever we put out on Twitter, because in our home league we're matched up against each other, and it was 7-7 last night, right? Headed into today. And as play is just about to finish here Sunday night for us as we're recording this, we are going to tie 8-8. And I shamed you in our league chat for not putting in any hitters today until tonight's game with the Cardinals, and you put in Juan Yepes in an attempt to try to win with average. But I had 7 of the 8 categories, and I was tied yesterday with you with stolen bases. And I'm like, I got too many guys. Someone's going to steal a base on Sunday. And the only thing that you could do really was hurt yourself. So you benched all of your players, which is total bush in my opinion, but that's because I wanted those categories. I wanted to lock.
See, here's the thing though, like my whole baseball philosophy is pitching and defense. So I put pitching. The defense was great. Offense didn't really produce today, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and my pitching in that league has been very, very poor. As I said to you before, I'll get 1 good start and 2 blowups, and then I'm wondering why my ERA every week in that home league is 5.5. And I'm scratching out 5 wins 1 week, the next week it's 2. But saves and holds have been really my saving grace with some of those guys. And again, everybody, Clay Holmes, this should become the official podcast of Clay Holmes. Because we were saying it before the season started. And then even in season, Ty was saying, keep pressing, keep pushing. And here he is, instead of just helping you in save hold leagues, he's helping everybody in the save leagues. It's great to see. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'll quickly just say our Twitter handles, Ty, and then we can go on and off to whatever else we're going to do. At Dingers Pod for the podcast. You can always reach us, DM us questions, screenshots of trades. We're here. We're happy to help you. You can hit up Ty at Tourney Boss or myself at Robbie Baseball 1, no spaces, no underlines, no anything. And the number 1, Robbie Baseball 1.
Definitely. And then, if our kids are going to work at a golf course, there's a good chance they're going to start this habit.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
How about a Woodford?
Oh, there you are. How about a Guinness? And I'm also having as my cider, KW.
Was there
craft
like
cider.
a hint at an accent there? Like
I was debating on trying to go Irish, and I'm like, I don't know.
It looked like you flirted with it like on and off throughout the
Yeah.
stating of the word Guinness.
How about a Guinness? Craft cider with the KW craft cider. It's a milder apple cider. This is the only time I drink this beer, or really that I have beer at all now, is when we're recording. So here we are. Cheers to beers and bourbon for you.
Let's do it. So we're getting to that part of the year where you're starting to analyze ways you can make your team better. You're either going to make a run for the playoffs, or you're looking at the rebuild mode in these deep leagues that we talk about so often. That rebuilding happens. It has to happen. The thing, Robbie, for me, and I think we can get right into it before we get into the depth of these guys, is what do you do with a 500 team right now, right? I think more often than not, like, people don't have that reality check, and I think they miss an opportunity to do some spending or some buying early on. And I think that's something that you and I talk about a lot, just you and I offline. But trying to get into this prospect depth early before everyone else ravages it is certainly something that a lot of people have the inability to commit to. They're like, you know what, my team could get lucky. No, that's generally not how it works. Generally, your team's either good or it is not. As a fantasy owner, you should have a very strong idea of which category you fit into. I feel like a lot of people don't have that ability to do it. Rob, I'm thinking about your team in the Real Money League that had an awful start. Is now coming back, right? So that's where you sit on that one, because you're kind of fit into this exact conversation right now with that team.
Yeah, and so with that particular team, we've mentioned it enough on here about the format where if you in the auction, you could say $10, and that's 10 actual dollars. We have a salary cap, not a hard cap. We have a luxury tax system in that league. After you've spent $180 $130, whatever it is, every dollar after 130, I think it is actually $2. And then once you get $220, it becomes $3. So if you have a player who in this league, we have Acuna is $80 and you're in the tax, that means that Acuna could actually be costing you $160 or more. I went into the tax this year. I think my estimated salary was going to be $180, which puts me somewhere around $260 to be in this league, where the winner can win a couple $1,000. Now, I did that with certain veteran players that I thought were going to do well together, but also grouped with a couple Detroit outfielders in Reyes and Robbie Grossman. Now, I was thinking for sure Robbie Grossman could have some regression, but not in the area of taking walks, playing every day, and just contributing. I thought it would still, even if it was to a lesser degree, it would still happen. So far, and the injuries are definitely hurting it. An upcoming rehab assignment this week could maybe help to turn the tide further. But I was hurt so bad in that league. I didn't know what to do because I'd made that initial investment. Now in that league, what you can trade players off and trade salary just like MLB. So my thought initially was, I'm going to wait until we're into May. I'm going to figure out what my team's actually doing once we get some health. And even when we got into May, I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm just so bad. My team is not winning because we have 3 and 4 day periods where you're matched up against 3 or 4 teams, 2 or 3 teams. So I didn't know exactly what to do, Ty, until I started to see, okay, my team's now healthy, relatively speaking. A couple of my prospects are up. Let's see what my team can actually do over the next, 10 days. And over the last 15, 16 matchups, I think by the end of play tonight, my team will be no worse than 13-3 over that stretch. Now, my team was more than 20 games below 500 before then, dead last in my division. When play starts tomorrow morning, I could be as high as 3rd in the division. And with our playoff format and all those fun things, I consider myself to have a legitimate shot to be in contention, kick the can down the road a month when we hit July. So with that particular league, I'm in an absolute hold pattern. And we've already seen our 2-time defending league champion state in the group chat he's looking to sell some of his 2022 contracts for whatever's going to help them further down the road. And that's when you start to look at a lot of other teams who aren't saying anything. That's what I like to do anyway, Ty, and see, well, would they consider moving whatever that piece is that, I think my team's going to need. And in that particular league, I'm thinking I'm going to wait a month. I'm going to see how my division's set up. If it's a 2 or 3 team race and the other 2 that I think are going to be behind me tomorrow morning continue to fall back, well, I might just continue down that stretch. I started off terrible this year in that league. I've loved the last little bit, but I need more games now to see, am I going to be a 500 team before I actually spend more on this team? Because I don't want to recoil. I hate the sell-off teams when they're decent, right? I don't like a team that could make the playoffs dismantling unless it's specific to their cause, right? They were already in over their head or something like that. So how are you feeling in that league? Where are you in your standings in the division? Anyway?
I am on the heels of the division leader. I had a really slow start. My infield has been decimated. So I've spent the last couple weeks with no infield. So I'm shocked that I've kind of played above 500 ball. My pitching is my strength, as it is in most leagues. So I've been pretty good. Luis Castillo has been the guy. I got him and Rasmussen and Montes. That's been a pretty good combo that I've been running out there. Christian Javier is in there. So pitching, I'm pretty much set. So I'm winning pitching almost every week in almost every category, which is a good thing. And then I just have to chip away at a couple offensive categories, similar to the strategy I rolled into you with the home league this week. So I'm feeling like I'm going to be a playoff team. I think as my offense gets healthy, I have some assets in the minors to go get, a little bit of extra infield depth that should come available as the season moves on here. But we'll see. I think injuries can still happen. I mean, I certainly spent the first couple of years of this league fighting those injuries, Tommy John after Tommy John, but we'll get there. So I'm feeling good. I'm definitely 37 and 25 or whatever, something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. So in those particular instances, I think that's where you want to go ahead. You want to be waiting at the least, like I've said, or buying in. And sometimes it really pays to jump, because once the market gets set up in July and you realize that within your league, you have 10 teams willing to take on, contracts or do more things, especially in those types of contracts leagues, it can be really tough. I've heard people discuss trading draft picks. What's the best way? Well, in this particular league that we're discussing, that's not an option. You can't trade your draft picks. But of course, fantasy baseball, one of the best parts of it is trading someone else's today for your tomorrow, so that you can, become that champion. And we are going to go over the 1 year later kind of results from last year's June draft. But before we do that, Ty, we've got a few little bits and bobs of business. We've got hot news, but before that, there are a whole bunch of 2-start pitchers. So as we're talking, for any of you roto guys out there, of which Ty and I are also in that class, punishing ourselves playing roto leagues, you have several 2-start options for next week. And some of the ones that I think are the riskiest, in no particular order, would be Jose Quintana with Pittsburgh, who's playing Detroit and at Atlanta. Kyle Bradish with Baltimore, who's taking on the Cubs and then going to Kansas City. Kyle Hendricks, Baltimore, and at New York. Not at all a good one for Hendricks. Mad Bombs going to Cincinnati, going to Philly. Mitch White is at the White Sox, at San Francisco. The J Zone, Ross Stripling at Kansas City, at Detroit, and Trevor Rogers. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, Washington, and then at Houston. You've got Daniel Lynch, who I think is a good option, but it's at Toronto, not a good option. And then, home to Toronto, and then taking on Baltimore over the weekend. Evan Lee, I don't know who the hell's Evan Lee, at Miami, and then play Milwaukee. Jermaine Marquez. Thankfully, they're both on the road, but it's San Francisco and San Diego. So I don't know. I don't know that that's a reprieve there. You got Bailey Ober with Minnesota, who's taking on the Yankees and Tampa Bay, both at home. And then it gets a little more interesting in this kind of a group where I think you could maybe steal 2 good wins. Garrett Whitlock, who we really like, Ty, I've got to be honest, where I have him, I'm not a big fan of the fact that he's now just a starting pitcher with the Red Sox, because I really enjoyed his multi-position eligibility in points formats, how he could get me 7 or so points. And in those leagues where you have caps, Garrett Whitlock is not good enough at this moment to be a stardom all the time guy. So if you only get one shot and you're looking at him going to the Angels to play and then going to Seattle, it's a coin flip. You think he should do well against the Angels, which could probably be the game he gets blown up, and then he could shut down the Mariners. But that's not ideal. There's Cincinnati's new dude, Graham Ashcroft, taking on Arizona, then going to St. Louis. Hunter Green, who starts tomorrow's game, I think, is doing the same thing, Arizona at St. Louis. John Gray with Texas. So, man, it's been rough, but he might be righting the ship at Cleveland, at the White Sox. So the White Sox one, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the White Sox are like on the weekend. Michael Wacha at LA, at Seattle, Thor, Boston, and then to the Mets. Ranger Suarez, who I really had high hopes for this year, who's 4.6 something ERA right now. It's going to Milwaukee and then hopefully gets reprieve taking on Arizona at home. Connor Pilkington is one that I'm interested in. Just picked him up in the home league for next week, Ty. He's also a Cleveland boy, and he will be playing Texas and playing Oakland. I don't mind that matchup. Brad Keller's got the same thing as Lynch, where he's taking on Toronto and then Baltimore. Carlos Carrasco at San Diego, at the Angels. Cole Irvin of Oakland taking on Atlanta and then taking on Cleveland. Dakota Hudson at Tampa Bay, at Cincinnati. And then the rest of the guys are all guys I think you would be starting no matter what. Robbie Ray, Kopech, Jeffrey Springs with Tampa Bay, Cal Quantrill, Blake Snell, Carlos Rodon, Christian Javier, Kyle Wright, and good old fashioned Nestor Cortez. So there's a lot of value to be had with some of the not lesser guys, with some of the guys that might be available in your league. So if you're looking to make a move early or you want to jump the gun, there are a few guys there. Is there anyone that you thought the matchup sounded like too good to be true that you would even consider trying to make a Sunday night trade for?
Who is Whitlock matched up against?
At the Angels, at the Mariners.
See, I like that one because I think he's been pretty good in the starting rotation. His first start, he 2 earned over 5, and then he bounced back to the bullpen for 3 innings, 3 earned. Then he went 2 earned again in 5 innings. Then he went back to the bullpen. Or maybe he started that one. Never mind. I take that back. He did have 1 bad outing against Seattle, but then, 6 innings against Baltimore, 2 earned, and then June 1st against Cincy, 6 with no earned. So, I'm in a different court than you are. You're just bitter about your points league format.
Well, you know what? I was just going to say that. I was going to say, let me tell you. So you just said the actual stat line, and that's important. Here's the fantasy stat line for all the fantasy players. And I'm going to go from June 1st start back to April 28th. April 23rd. So all of his starts this year. So June 1st, with the most recent one, 21 points. Prior to that, 19. Prior to that, Seattle, as you mentioned, was a bad start, -3 points. Then he was Houston, 10 points. At Atlanta, only 3. Taking on the Angels, who he will be doing again, 20 points. That was his season high prior to the last start against Cincinnati. Then he played Toronto on April 28th, had 2 points, and Tampa Bay had 18. Those were the starts. So from the 23rd of April through. Overall, it hasn't been bad. That's not my complaint. And when he's good, he's upper teens into the 20s. That's absolutely what you're wanting out of a points pitcher. The problem is that if you take the last 5 combined starts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starts, you're looking at a guy who's averaging you around 12 points per start. That's a bit of trouble if you have to lock it in for the week. And again, we have a good start against the Angels in his pocket, who he's going to match up with tomorrow. You got a bad start against Seattle, who he's going to face over the weekend. That again tells me, what am I looking at best case scenario? Am I looking at 20, 24 points from him this week, or am I looking at 30 plus? So it sounds like, Ty, you're saying if the over was 29 points, you'd be taking the over on Whitlock for the week?
I think I would. I'm not saying I would do it every week, but I'm thinking
but this week in particular.
Yeah, with those matchups, I think I would. Boston's kind of slowly coming down from that offensive peak. Generally, the way baseball works is the pitchers get hot in that window. So I'm going to bet on that. Like Cincinnati, as much as they suck, their offense hasn't been a lot bad. Yeah, it hasn't been that bad lately. So, to me, like he faced Seattle and he got crushed. So there's going to be some money on the board for that defense to pick him up. I like him to bounce back against Seattle. I feel like that Seattle lineup is a patient lineup. And there's going to be days where they're the best offense in baseball, but there's going to be days where they're the worst in baseball too. So I think I'm going to bet on the fact that they gave it to him last time, and we haven't seen that a lot out of Whitlock at any level. So I think there's a good chance that he could bounce back in that outing. So I would be willing to take that risk. I watched enough Whitlock. I trust his stuff. I trust him not to hurt himself, right? Doesn't mean a team can't beat him, but I trust him to go out there and give it a shot and be close to that scenario, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm very quickly checking. Evan Lee is, a pitcher with Washington. I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, where the heck? Because I didn't put it in. But he made his debut this past week, and it looks like he's going to stick around for a bit. But it was 3 2/3, 2 Ks, took the loss. Nothing special. But if I was to pick one guy, Ty, I am taking, and there's a lot, like one guy meaning waiver wire type guy, somebody in a dynasty league. He's probably owned, like Pilkington's going to be rostered somewhere, so you're going to have to look elsewhere. Evan Lee probably isn't, very low ownership. Mitch White, I believe, is Dodger. Let me check that.
He is. Yep.
Yeah, because
he'll be owned in a lot of spots
4 years ago,
but he'll be owned because he's a Dodger in all likelihood.
Yeah, and nothing special, right? This season, 4.79 ERA, 22 Ks in 20 2/3 innings.
Placeholder.
Well, I was just gonna say, but as a starter, you never know, because the wins are always a potential for him there. But yeah, so there anyway, lots of options for everybody out there. And we were earlier in the year trying to say 2-start guys. I think we're gonna have to do our best to get back to that. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, which typically comes out on a Friday, this is old news. If I get my S together, as I was saying to Ty before, I'm not looking at who's up next for 2-start guys. I'm trying to look at the week beyond. And we've talked about this before. If you want to try to jump ahead in your league, you need to start to look at the guys who are starting Thursday and Friday in your league when you want 2-start guys a week ahead of everybody else, right? So if you see whoever's starting Thursday and Friday, start to look at them as guys to pick up on your waivers or to look for in trade where you can get an immediate bump with a 2-start week. Obviously league dependent. So Ty, are you good to go through some hot news?
Let's do it.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so hot news. It's short and sweet. Chicago White Sox starting pitcher, because they need one. Lance Lynn looks like he could possibly be back over the weekend. That would put him in around the 10th, 11th. I don't know whether he would get a start, but it's possible. Third baseman first baseman J-Mark Candelario with Detroit hurt his shoulder, lunging for a ball from Donaldson today. That is not great news. Jared Koenig, Koening, an Oakland starting pitcher, will be or has already started, depending on when you listen to this, on Wednesday for the A's up against, I think it's Atlanta. And at 28, he is owned in 0% of Fantrax leagues. No hype around him at all. He played indie ball. I think he went to Australia as well. He could also be in line to become an SP5 type guy that gives you SP3 value for a little bit while he gets figured out. Pretty good line at AA, AAA earlier this year to get himself into this position. This will be the 9th guy who started for the A's already this year, but I'm going to say that there's the potential here for this to become a Patrick Wisdom, Frank Schwindel type help you for a while roster or waiver wire pickup. So if you want to get fabulous, Ty, because I know we still have the opening thing that says, let's get fabulous. There it is. For the 0 people that are watching it live, that's okay. Kind of a crummy thing, but this is what happens, right, guys? This is the time of the year that bad things happen. Willie Calhoun of Texas, formerly of Texas, now DFA'd, and Steely Walker was called up. Do you remember this trade, Ty? Nomar Mazara. Yeah, Nomar Mazara was part of the trade. Was Steely Walker, and oh my gosh, who was the other guy? Micah Adolfo. I think that was the trade with Mazara because he was with Texas.
I think you might be right. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, as Mazara is now up with San Diego because Robinson Cano was so bad they couldn't take it in San Diego. They're like, that's it. Give me no more. I'm going to Noma. But anyway, so Willie Calhoun DFA'd. Sad news. Absolute everywhere. Potential bat first impact hitter.
Yeah.
Needed a position, like just for that prospect thing. Like everybody needs to keep this in mind when somebody comes approaching you about some sort of can't miss prospect. They can all miss. And here's an example of a guy who seemed to only have the issue of needing a position. And Texas moved him around. They tried and they just couldn't keep him on the 26 man anymore. I don't know if he'll get picked up. Obviously Pittsburgh, but I don't know if it'll really happen. They can only have so many round bodies.
I actually think and it's such a homer thing to say, but Toronto with a left-handed bat,
if he had options, probably, but I don't, because they'd have to move. I don't know what they do. I don't know what they would do.
And Zimmer, get rid of him.
Yeah. Zimmer for fantasy owners. If you have a trade that you need made and Zimmer's on your roster, try to include him in said trade just so he's not dropped. Try to include him so that another team has to make a move, because you should not roster him right now. And not a good idea. It was a lot of redraft guys looking at the possibilities as a Cleveland Guardian outfielder when we were already saying, here on Dingers, caution, Cleveland Guardian outfield situation at all times. But Zimmer being traded to Toronto just has not worked out at all.
Free agent in 25, Willie Calhoun. So that could be a very reasonable, and you might have to toss something else in. Yeah, I think that would be a good trade for Toronto, desperately needing a power left-handed bat. He probably has to figure some stuff out in AAA, but I think that if they could pull that off, that's a team that desperately needs that left-handed bat.
Well, maybe there's a way, Ty, that they could send Biggio, because Calhoun's free right now, right? Being DFA'd, so he's free, but they could possibly maybe find a way to get more back by giving up Biggio and getting Calhoun plus, whatever the plus would be that they deemed desirable. There was a lot of talk that Trey would have been
a playoff hunt, though. That's the problem, though. Texas in the playoff hunt.
Well, but adding Biggio might be to their benefit in their minds. I don't know. I'm just trying to think.
I think Toronto says no to that, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I don't want either player in a Jays uniform, and we already got Biggio, so let's not add Calhoun to that mix. Anyway, Travis Swaggerty. Remember how he was also supposed to be a guy? He was one of those top 100 cusp guys, right? Some people had him within and others were not ready to do it, not tools enough, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, Pittsburgh said, F it, come on up, man, come on up. So he's up. We'll see what kind of a run he gets with the Pirates, but it's just another guy to come up. And a hot news update from the last podcast, Ty. I like this idea. I think whatever the hot news is in the current podcast, on the next podcast we recap things so that people get an idea of what's gone on since we took the time to bring it up. So on the last podcast, Yu Chang, former Cleveland Guardian, was DFA'd, goes to Pittsburgh, 0 for 9, 7 strikeouts, and sent down. I think he was sent down, or maybe he was re-DFA'd. I don't know. But either way, Yu Chang, it's not Changin there. Michael Harris, who we talked about with Atlanta, was called up. So far, he's had a 265 average, 3 RBIs, 639 OPS, no dingers. That's going to be a theme, I think, with most of these guys. Mickey Moniak activated. Ty, you said it. You said it's going to be a slow start, and boy, has it. 154 average, 1 RBI, and a 368 OPS. Cody Clemens, who was doing great in AAA, has a decimal 0.77 OPS. I believe that means 1 walk in 11 at bats. I think that's how that math works out. And that's it. But there could be some playing time coming for him soon. Nelson Velasquez was short and sweet, 7 at bats with the Cubbies, sent back down, 2 for 7, only 2 strikeouts. So like you'd said last week as well, odd that he's up. Is he going to stick around or not? But maybe because of this next guy here, which I got to hand him over to you. Maybe that's why he's gone. Get back on the page.
I was just trying to figure out some Willie Calhoun dirt.
Please don't.
Yeah, Clint is gonna be slow, but I think there's a bounce back here. Like, and I had the game open from tonight. I didn't even see if he got started. He's playing the Sunday night game.
Yeah,
or
5 for
his
14
teammates.
so far, 357 average, a stolen base, a 955 OPS. It's been good. You said slow, but he's actually been good out of the gate here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was more thinking Moniak was going to be the slow one. Like,
Yeah,
Frazier,
that's what you said.
Frazier's lightning in a bottle. Like, who knows what he's going to be? I'm just saying, with Frazier, the upside is there, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, to me, Frazier is, I don't know, he's not quite a Jose Bautista because that's way too much, but you know, he has that kind of pop, right? And Bautista was a different kind of hitter than Frazier will ever be, but Frazier has the upside of power to make an immediate impact if he can just get his head out of his, you know what, like, it's just he is a guy that I think needed to get out of New York. I think being drafted to New York was the worst thing that ever happened to Clint Frazier, or sorry, being traded to New York was the worst thing that ever happened to Clint Frazier. I think there's a player here, and I think the biggest mistake the Cubbies did was sign him to a 1-year deal. And I think the biggest mistake Clint Frazier made was sign a 1-year deal. I think somebody would have gave him 2 or 3, and I think he needs that to prove that with the runway. Like, you know, they talk about it in nauseum. If you're a listener and you're a Jays fan, you know what I'm talking about. Like, on the broadcast, they pump Cavan Biggio like it's nothing you've ever seen before. And I feel like what they're saying about Cavan just needing at bats, I feel like that's what Clint Frazier needs and is not getting, right? And to me, running Chris Morel out there right now, sure, he's a nice guy and sure, he's had some success, but the upside to Morel versus a Clint Frazier, to me, is not even close. I think the minute they stop throwing the heaters to Morel, I think, you know, he's going to turn into a pumpkin. That's my personal opinion in the at-bats that I've seen. But, you know, maybe there's more to him. Maybe there's an evolution. But you've got Ortega and Hayward. Like, Hayward's got to be on the move, right? He's got to be a guy that some team wants to add a left-handed veteran clubhouse guy at some point. So maybe that happens sooner than later. That could be a guy that gets, you know, the early season trade angle.
I'm sure that's a phone call that the Cubs would love to have. Hey, I'm inquiring about Hayward. Yeah. What do we got to do to get him? What do we got to do to get him in your clubhouse?
You need to pay all of his contract. Let's start there, because that contract is a monster. I don't know what the back end of it is, but it was a big deal. That was maybe one of the worst contracts in baseball history, even though they won a World Series with him.
Yeah, it seemed like a good idea at the time deal. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Seemed like a good idea. I do need to circle back to this week's hot news. So just because I want to make sure we update it later. But I forgot to add Kyle Lewis, having gone on the IL with the Mariners, concussion this time. My God, talk about a guy who just like Clint Frazier, who needs to be healthy because he's so good. Because even in limited at bats, 2 home runs in his short time up. You know, I'm counting on him in a league. I ended up picking up Taylor Trammell. I mentioned on a previous podcast just to cover myself, and thank goodness I did. But Chris Bryant's another guy who's had an extended period of time. We need to see him back. Guy that is up for injured players is Nick Plummer with the Mets. We mentioned him on the last podcast. Well, 4 for 11, 364 average, 2 dingers, 3 runs, and 5 RBIs. Good for you, Nick Plummer. Keep it going, man. Keep that up. Sad news, though. Yeah.
I just looked up the Hayward contract just to be sure. He's got 1 more year left, so he ain't going anywhere with 22 mil this and 22 mil next. So woof.
I wonder what Cano had left pre-cut, like if this was his last year. But no matter what, he didn't have to get paid last year. So the Mets would probably have at least been able to say, okay, like we're okay with whatever. I mean, we're talking possibly 20 plus million bucks, which is ridiculous to say. If you're the Pirates, you're not taking that deal. But yeah, sad news is Kevin Pillar was called up, didn't do well, going 1 for 12, but got hurt, bust up the shoulder, season-ending surgery. It's unfortunate. It happens sometimes, whatever. But the final part here, Ty, was fun and exciting, is the Pham v. Peterson fantasy baseball feud has now gone to the fact that Tommy Pham has called out Mike Trout, who's the commissioner of their league, and said he is a bad commissioner. Man, I love it. I think it was all about the fantasy baseball or fantasy football, which is great because we talked about that before. And I thought, man, I just hope it is genuinely like they're just hardcore guys and they just hate the fact that like you can manipulate the rules and the commissioner didn't shut it down. And it's exactly what what we love and hate about some of the fantasy leagues that we're in are people who do these kind of things and play a certain way. Fam V Peterson continues.
The takeaway here, and I know this is something you and I have talked about, like the channel in which communication happens, right? They had a text channel, like a text group going.
Yeah.
There's your first mistake. Have somewhere where it can be shared publicly, like, without a screenshot. Like that's like have a spot where you can call each other out all in one space, and you can reference it and re-comment to the same post over and over again. Because like if Tommy Pham was or is still in that league somehow, he should be getting absolutely lambasted on the message board. And text chains cool are easy, they're in your pocket, I get it, but it certainly isn't the best forum for discussion and debate.
Okay, whatever. This is just more Facebook promotion from
I
you.
Didn't say that.
All right,
didn't say that. Did not say that.
Didn't have to. You spelled it out. Easy, Zuckerberg. Anyway, so players who need a new organization. I couldn't think of any that I thought needed it at this moment in time. The existing list: Vidal Brouillon, Joe Adell, who of course Joe Adell's been called back up. That's awesome. Great. Let's see him do something. Luis Garcia with Washington. He's been called up. He's been great. Yes, let's see that continue. Ryan Fitzgerald with Boston, AAA depth guy Bobby Bradley with Cleveland, Kevin Biggio, who is now again back up, and we still don't like him, so just ship him out of town. Garrett Hampson, the only guy on the Rockies who can hit over 200. What's going on with Garrett Hampson? And then Jose Siri, who I think we're going to end up just needing to drop off the list just out of fatigue because it's just not going to happen in Houston. I'm just so upset about it. But that takes care of the normal things that we like to cover off the top before we get into the fun, exciting topic du jour.
Yeah. I think Frankie Montes is a guy that fits the needs to move on list.
Okay. Let's throw him on. I'm happy to add names.
Cause he's having decent outings and he's like 1-7 or whatever he is. He's been better than most pitchers in baseball. He needs to go somewhere. He's destined for New York. I hate to even say that out loud, but it's gonna happen.
Oh, you said it.
It's the way it's gonna happen.
Whether
it's the Mets or the Yankees, like both of them are in play. I will say this: if the Mets gave up Brett Beatty for Montes, they're stupid. But that's what it's going to cost them to get him. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. So topic for tonight. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're talking 2021 draft class this week, and we've talked about a lot of these guys here and there, but let's taking a look at their success and their data, what we've seen so far. We talked about it last week in Robbie's "You Really Grind My Gears" session. But
grab your gears, grind. You know what? Grind.
I said grind.
Gears. No, I
said grind.
I heard grab.
No, that's what happens in your shed. You go out and you grab gears and you put them in. But that's how you build a car, isn't it?
Well, hey, all right. Before we dive in, so my 1979 Dodge Ram Power Wagon, full-time 4-wheel drive. I've been talking to you about it anyway, Ty, but just so everybody knows, because I'm sure everyone's like, oh, I hope he mentions his truck. Here it is for you, 38 and a half minutes into the pod. The truck is now running. I twiddled and fiddled with the carburetor. I ended up changing an ignition coil, which if you don't know what that is, that's because your vehicle does not run on a carburetor. You've got fuel injection. Good for you, fancy pants. But I am running carburetor here, and I got it running. It idles. It drives backwards and forwards now very poorly. And as I said to you before, Ty, I've got this major issue with it, which is that there's leaf springs on all four, or where all four tires are on both axles of the truck, because it's 4-wheel drive. And I don't have just shocks or like coils or whatever. It's actual leaf springs with shocks, and 3 leaf springs on each side at the front and like 5 on the back. Well, on the front driver's side, it must have sat out and just been weathered on, because that's where the inner fender was rusted. There's rust through the floor, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I have 1 leaf spring that has not cracked all the way through on the one side. The other 2 are gone. They're obliterated. And I've got the reverse of the spring. It is sprung. It is now on the reverse side, and a lot of pressure is getting put down on it. And I know that the shock is shot. So all I do is drive it as best I can, very slowly on flat ground, because I know that thing's going to spin and crack, and then all of a sudden I'm going to disable the vehicle. So I've now convinced my beautiful wife that I get to buy a lift kit for it, a suspension lift kit. It's only 4 inches, but the reason I'm doing it is so that I can put the plow on to do the dirty work. That's what I told her anyway. So I'm going to be putting a suspension lift kit on it. So if there's any mechanics out there, hit me up at Robbie Baseball 1. And this has been your Dodge truck moment. Appropriate to play that off.
Yeah.
90 plus seconds.
So we're gonna get into it, Robbie. And Robbie did all the digging here, so kudos to Robbie on the data dump here. But we're gonna go through some of the successes, failures of what the early picks have done, and some of the deep guys that have either maybe achieved above or have had signing bonuses. A little bit of everything here in this mix, but starting right off the hop, some of the guys, Robbie, you got your finger up as if you want to say something.
If any listener wants to add somebody that was drafted last year, we're not talking the J2 guys, not for this episode, but if you've got someone who we're not about to talk about, if you don't hear that name, just hit up at Dingers Pod, hit up the podcast and say this prospect from last year's draft, because I want to add them to the list, because I do want to circle back to this in August before we hit playoff time. I think it's important to do this twice this year minimum, and then we're going to have the offseason to go through everybody. But if you don't hear a player's name, please hit Twitter at Dingers Pod, and just all you got to do is just say the player's name, and if you have any information like the year obviously the year they were drafted was 2021, the round, signing bonus, any reason why they stand out to you, I want to hear about it. I want to get as much info on this, because I want this to be an annual repeating thing that we talk about. Yeah,
so I'm gonna go with 2 guys here off the top, Robbie, because to me, and this, they're the 2 that I put at the highest top of the board for me in the 21 draft. And that's Khalil Watson and Brady House. So Brady House has had a great start. He's hitting 275, 3 bombs, stolen base, 29% K rate, obviously concerning. This is a high school bat though, so keep that in mind. Going against the pros, he's going to have a little bit of an adjustment. So we're looking for that improvement over the next couple of years. And the walk rate has some room for improvement, 8% so far. But room for improvement. Again, an 18-year-old, might be 19 by now, but this is a kid that certainly has ceiling and no questions. Probably the best power bat in the first round, Robbie, for projectability. Khalil Watson on the other side, a bit more of a skill guy on the infield position, shortstop here. 6 home runs, 9 stolen bases, 218 batting average, of monumental 46% K rate with just a 5% walk rate. So lots of room for improvement. We talked about this in last week's episode, just about giving up on these kind of guys way too early. Like, this is a guy that clearly has power, right? There's power in a good profile. There's enough rotation that can be there. You look at guys before him that struggled with unique swing planes, like Harper, right? Had an initial dip where everybody questioned the superstardom. Zach Veen went through a similar experience, right, as another guy that kind of fit that category. I put Khalil Watson kind of in that category where there's just a bit of a unique cut, and he has to learn how to make some adjustments. He's going to see some pitches that he's not seen in terms of break. He just has to make some adjustments on. So I think he's going to be fine. He's an absolute athlete from that perspective. He's going to be able to make up for some of his inefficiencies. I expect the batting average to come up. For me, Robbie, I think if he makes the pros, this is kind of a Jazz Chisholm, right?
Thank you.
That's what I see here.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That was my comment. Does everyone remember when Arizona traded away Jazz Chisholm and people were like, "Oh yeah, they dodged a bullet there"? Well, I mean, look at the middle infield in Arizona today. Yeah. Like, you don't need Zach Allen on your mound, pumping out a 5 ERA and the odd quality start. You need Jazz Chisholm there helping you shore it up. And I think that's exactly it, Ty. So if you also notice,
let's not be too harsh on Zach Allen. He's had a pretty good season.
No.
3.32 ERA.
Well, sorry, but in general terms of since the trade, like, Zach Allen has not been a rock steady guy that you can count on. If you're a fantasy guy like us, if you're listening to this podcast, you're 45 minutes into this bad boy, and I've only talked about trucks for 90 seconds, but that Zach Allen has burned you more than he has really helped you, because when he's been helpful, he hasn't been dominant. He's just been helpful, right?
Yeah.
Jazz Chisholm has won you weeks already in less pro time. So I'm just trying to say, I like your point. And the other thing that I did here, Ty, just on our board, I feel like we can do a silent draft as we're discussing guys. So you picked 2 guys. I've picked 3 just because I figured after the first 2, we'll just go guy to guy on who we discuss here. So I've highlighted yours with bold, and then I've given mine a beautiful orange color, very much like
orange
my
hue.
truck. Yeah, very much like my truck, which the color I believe is called champagne for my truck. Anyway, so the 2 guys I'm going to talk about, because my new developing love for catchers, I'm just going to run with this from last year's draft. Henry Davis was picked. Was he first overall last year to the Pirates? Yeah, you get confused because it's fantasy baseball. Everybody was picking lighter. So anyway, Henry Davis with Pittsburgh just promoted to Double-A after a line of 342, for his average, 5 home runs, 5 stolen bases. And here's a really good thing for him: 22% K rate and a 10% walk rate. That's a professional baseball player right there who's moving up to Double-A. Let's see what he does up there, and let's see if he could end the year possibly even at Triple-A, because there's enough time left with the season for Triple-A going well into September. We could see a second promotion. Either way, good news with Henry Davis. However, catcher. Now, on the other side of that, the upside pick in the first round, and where a lot of people very quickly in the prospect world jumped over Henry Davis, was saying Harry Ford with Seattle, the catcher there. Toolsy dude, all those fun key words. He's artisan, he's organic, grain fed. But in 122 at bats, it's low A, a 213 average, 2 home runs, a 34% K rate. However, Ty, the absolute redeeming factor here in my eyes, and the highest we're going to talk about now, is that walk percentage, 24%.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
I don't know if you can use big words like that. You're starting to sound like Rick Poundstone. With all the big words out there. But I don't see Harry Ford as the guy. Like, he seems like a Tom Murphy to me, right? Like, that's what I see. Like, he's still a little bit young, so let's let him develop a little bit. We talk about this all the time. Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves, like, especially catchers, right?
Right.
But
that's exactly it.
But to me, he just has a Tom Murphy profile, like a guy that can just light the world on fire for a couple of days with obvious power, and in this case with Harry Ford, looks like some plate discipline, right? Which Tom Murphy doesn't necessarily have. But I would always go, and this fits my Yadi Molina, tool. Like, Henry Davis seems like a Yadi Molina type, or like just going to give you decent average, a little bit of power. Just a guy that's not going to hurt you. I'm going to take that guy every single time at the catcher position. That's just me, but that's where I sit on that one. So jumping ahead on the guys that I'm going to take next, I'm going to go to the arms. I went 2 infielders with my first 2. I'm going to steal the best arms on the board, in my opinion.
I like it. The impromptu draft. This is fun.
Yeah. So Will Bednar is a guy that I loved. I believe Mississippi State is the alma mater. There, 35 innings, 44 Ks. 1.086 whip with a 4.37 ERA. So he's at A-ball. I think he's going to move quickly. My guess is they made a couple minor mechanical adjustments for him. It wasn't perfect, his mechanics. So his stuff's excellent. Maybe one of the more polished stuff out of the draft from a college arm. I expect him to take a big step forward in the second half of this season. So what my suggestion would be is, if you want to acquire Will Bednar, go get him in the first half, because I think he will make a strong step forward and probably make the Double-A jump in the second half. So go get him now before he turns this corner, and go offer a reasonable average, top 500 guy or a couple of them for Will Bednar, because I think he can get him at a reasonable price right now.
I like this as a trade idea, Ty. Let's say your league allows you to trade draft picks. Most of them do, of course, but we've mentioned earlier one that doesn't. Last year in the league where it doesn't, the big money league, I drafted Bednar thinking this was a really safe college arm pick that I could have come up within 3 years. So it was 2021. I expect I should see him, in and around the 2024 season. I think that's a fair adjustment mark for him. I would still believe that to be true today. If we were in a league where you could trade your picks, would you be willing to trade your 2022 first round pick to pick up Will Bednar, who would have been a 2021 first round pick last year?
I would be willing to do it. I'm not saying that I would because to be fully transparent, I haven't done enough draft homework yet.
Okay.
So I'm not confident enough to say yes, but I'm confident to say that I would consider it very strongly.
Yeah, like not if it was if you figured you might be a bottom 5 team to have a top 5 pick, but if you were in, let's say, a big league, which we often reference here, Dynasty Podcast, if you're going to be between pick 20 and pick 30, Bednar was probably right around the 20 mark in most leagues last year. I think if I was in that 20 to 30 range, I would consider it, but I don't know that I would pull the trigger yet, simply because I don't know if I'm thinking I'm going to be in the 20 to 30 range with my pick. I'm a playoff team. I don't know that I'm going to trade to go get one of last year's first round picks. That certainly isn't going to be coming up. But
my issue is that if you wait too long here, I think the value is going to go up. So
right, like you're saying, if you think he's going to have a better second half, the cost is just going to basically go up by the start as the stats go, because 44 Ks and 35 innings pitched, and to me 10 starts, because that's an important thing starting from opening night. Those are the key stats that I'm looking at with him. It's great that the whip's not 177. We've got somebody on this list that has a high whip, but the ERA, like you said, if you're making mechanical adjustments, you can't say, oh, that fantasy stat line ERA, or his actual ERA is what he's pitching like today. If you see a guy who gives up a ton of bombs, that's something, you might want to be careful of. But Bednar seems like steady Eddie. Who's the other pitcher you got, Ty?
Yeah, the other one's Andrew Painter, who has been phenomenal. He's got a 1.40 ERA, 9 starts with a whip of 0.85. I left him second, but just because I didn't want to lead with the guy that I like the most on this board from the pitching side. 38 innings pitched, 69 Ks. Nice. But this is
at
the guy.
The right time.
Yeah, exactly. Like we could have done this episode last week, but we were waiting.
We waited, just crossed our fingers. Man, I hope he gets the 69 Ks.
But this is a guy that's absolute dynamite. I mean, with any high school arm, you are always just concerned with the injury, right? That's it. That's the only thing for me. Andrew Painter is one of the most promising arms in Major League Baseball right now. He is absolutely elite. And I'm excited to see what he can be. I would be surprised, like, if he's not bumped immediately. Like I don't know what level he's actually at. I'm guessing he's probably at
he's low A.
Is he?
Yeah.
So I don't know how you don't move like almost a 2x in Ks to high A right now. Like
he could be on the cusp. There's somebody that we're going to talk about in the outside the first round, who was at the same level as him, who's since been promoted. So it's entirely possible he's on the cusp of that promotion. He could have been promoted, but because he hasn't yet started, that news hasn't been released in the world in which I traveled for this info. So, but I absolutely love Painter. I only think I picked him up in one spot because of the high school curse, which, I mean, we've talked about it before. I guess we'll probably have to get into it at some point. When we talk about the 2022 MLB draft class, we'll talk about all the risks that are in it. But I mean, high school, you can't find a lower percentage of success than a high school first round pitcher. That is the lowest percentage that will exceed MLB rookie experience. So 50 plus innings.
Well, the only thing I'll say to that, Robbie, and it'd be interesting, like we had a lot of time in the 2020 season to do some of our back checks on some of this stuff. And we did our
what happened in 2020?
our own little research going backwards. But I'm curious because I just watching it from my day job perspective, like baseball at the grassroots level is changing. And these guys are becoming more pro ready out of high school. Right. So I'm curious to see, and there's no data here. There's nothing, I have no reference from this, but I'm expecting in my mind that high school arms are going to be a fraction. They're always going to be, trend to the average, but I think we're going to see a fraction of success of staying healthy out of the high school arms that we haven't seen. I think we're entering like a window where these guys coming out have at least been exposed to the concept of a pitch count, right? Like,
okay, so you're telling you could see like a health improvement for them.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Like, I think that's going to be a thing. I don't know how far. I don't know to what percentage. I have no, like, I'm just seeing things in the water, like the tea leaves, as they say, that could potentially impact that just a little. I don't know how far though.
Yeah, so I coached pre-pandemic with a Waterloo team, and they were talking about how some of the players would be on 2 or 3 teams, and that basically the coaches had to share the information on pitchers for exactly that purpose. So yeah, maybe that will be a change,
Well,
because the thing before was that you'd have a guy who's your ace on this team and he's your SP3 on the other, but he's pitching or starting potential, whatever it is. He's going to pitch 3 out of 4 days.
Baseball Canada is light years ahead of Arm Health than USA Baseball. Like, USA Baseball is slowly catching up, but for a while they just frankly didn't care. They got enough people, they can burn through enough arms. It didn't matter to them, and they're making the adjustment a little bit. Still not to the where Baseball Canada's. Baseball Canada's rules are almost too far on the safety side. Like, I think you also need to teach, and we see this now with the 100 pitch like brick wall that we see in Major League Baseball now. Like, we're almost too far into that. And I mean, I saw a thing today, like 13 years ago, like today, I think Randy Johnson won his 300th game. He's the last person to do that. And the next, like, Verlander has like 232. Right?
Oh, wow. Oh,
and he's the leader. Yeah, he's the active leader, right? So, you know, it's just like that ability to go into the 6th and the 7th and the 8th inning is gone from most of these guys. But it's just, I think we're going to see more of the young guys be able to survive. That's all. That's the takeaway there.
Well, that'd be great, because my son, who pitched on Saturday in T-ball, if you understand what I just said there, good for you. He only got 1 inning, and then they moved him over to first base. And I was ticked because, I mean, he gave up a hit every at bat, and all the runs scored. But anyway, so the next guy I picked has kind of been doing something like that. At AA, however, that's Sam Bachmann with the Angels. He's at AA already, 13 2/3 innings pitched. So I don't know if he was held back, started slow, whatever it was, but because he only has that, I think it's in 4 starts as well, 8 Ks, and that's all to write home about. The rest is wait and see approach. Now, Sam Bachmann was also drafted and thought of as he could be the best pitcher in this class. The caveat being health, that which also leads me into the next guy, who has been somebody who all off season, and as like the off season progressed and more people were doing their prospect homework, the name kept going up and the hype kept going up. And that's Trey Sweeney with the Yankees. I can't remember how high I saw him drafted. I know there was a draft in the Dynasty League I'm in where he was top 5. And I thought, okay, that's the most aggressive, that's the most aggressive one, but that very well could have been the same draft where Matt Brash was a top 10 pick, right? Just, you could have just drafted any prospect and somebody was like, oh, he's hyped up. So boom, I got that guy. Anyway, at high A, in full playing time, 141 at bats, he's got a 199 average. Again, Trey Sweeney of the Yankees we're talking about here. 6 dingers, 6 stolen bases. Both numbers there are great for 141 at bats. That's, both of those are really good. 34% K rate, which for the level's not great, but again, muted at bat total. You can always fix that over the next 10 at bats, and a 7% walk rate, which is probably par for the course for a guy like that. Now, Sweeney should probably have 100 more points on the batting average to really draw anyone's eyes to him, but he certainly had some of that swagger headed into this year, not from what he had done, but from what people had written about him and talked, blogged, etc. about him. So those were my next 2 guys. Ty, who you going for?
I will say just really quick on Sweeney.
Yeah, wrap up on the guy that.
Yeah, there's a guy that that I got a little excited about watching video, but the reality is 34% K rate doesn't match the swing. So I think there's going to be some progression here, but I'm very concerned with the 34% K rate, because I think if he doesn't reduce that, I think he's always going to be a guy that falls short.
I the draft hype. Sorry, just the draft hype for him does not spell out the that we thought he'd have. Sorry, I needed to circle back because
I see that. I saw what you did there. But the thing I'm concerned with, though, to me, is like, I think Sweeney had one of the better swings coming out in the draft, right? So for me to see the results so far be poor, like if you compare him to, say, a Khalil Watson, who, very similar kind of results so far, right? I think has tons of room for improvement, whereas Sweeney is 3 or 4 years older with college bats and in a better swing. So to me, I'm very concerned with his ability to adapt to pro ball. I need to see that K rate come down in a very, very big way. So like I'm concerned with Sweeney, whereas coming out of the draft, I wasn't that concerned. I'm a lot more concerned now.
So more sure bet headed through the offseason, and now you're starting to wonder.
I wouldn't say sure bet. I was just a guy I was trending up on. Like I was getting a little more like I didn't love him early on out of the draft, but as it got further on, I kind of saw what some of the people talked about. But to me, like we're now into like decision making, right? Like we've moved away from mechanics and we're now into like, okay, we're at pro ball, he's getting picked apart. And so that suggests there's a flaw in his approach or his swing or just his ability to hit velo, all of which are concerning, right? So I need to see a progression this season for Sweeney, or I'm probably going to move him way back. That's where I'm kind of at. I'm going to go and take probably the best two talents left on the board here, Robbie. And they're both debated at the shortstop position. I'm going to take Marcelo Mayer as a guy that I'm going to take as a floor guy, right? I think he has some upside in Boston. I hate to say this, but I have a ton of trust in the regime in Boston right now. They're doing good things all over the place. And I think Marcelo Mayer, for me, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like the power's not there yet. The contact's fine at 326 batting average so far, 86 at bats. He does have a 33% K rate, but again, this is another high school bat. 9% walk rate. Walk rate is moving in the right direction.
Yep.
But I'm not buying him because I think he's great now. I'm buying him because I trust the Boston regime right now, and that could change. But I'm going to take him. The other guy who I think has a chip on his shoulder now because he didn't come out of the gates, the way I think he wanted to enter pro ball. But that's Jordan Lawler. In Lawler.
Yeah, I think it's Lawler. Lawlar.
Cool.
But it could also be dependent on your region.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's like insurance, right? Insurance is said different everywhere. But yeah, so Jordan Lawler is 125 at bats, 7 bombs, 18 stolen bases, Robbie. 18.
Yeah.
I know that's like I'm shocked that you left him on the board with 18 stolen bases.
Talk about your 5 category guy right there.
Yeah. 352 batting average, 30% K rate. Again, high school bat. 17% walk rate. Like I don't know how you.
Yeah, that's the big. That's
like how, like this is like a.
Well, I'm
like
not picking a
guy.
team. I'm picking guys that I want to talk about because I think Jordan Lawler is fascinating. I have him nowhere, and I blame people who said he's just going to be a miss. And I'm like, okay, you think he looks like that athlete profile? And I'm like, and in my head, when I hear athlete profile, I immediately go to Anthony Alford because that's our recency bias within Toronto of the guy who was a big athlete, toolsy dude. Pick your. I think he was artisan, organic, and free range as well. Jordan Lawler possibly being that guy out in Arizona, I just didn't bother with. I would take Brady House when I was in that position. I would take Cleo Watson when I was in that position. I'd skip right over him. Early results, give Lawler credit.
To me, that there's a certain thing like in when it comes to the scouting world and high school bats specifically, I always give a tick up to the Texas bats, right? Because it's windy in a lot of the open areas of Texas. So power is a premium in a lot of scenarios. Pitching's really good in Texas for the most part. And there's a ton of money in Texas. So they fly in good pitching from all over the country in the tournament circuits. So I always give a little bit of an extra credit to high school bats there. It's in Florida, California, get a tick up as well. But Texas to me just has a little bit of grit. Like they just have a little bit of a different one than Florida and California, which get all the hype in this what I'm talking about here. But to me, I just Jordan Groshans is a guy that came out of the same kind of profile out of Texas, maybe not as highly touted as Lawler was, but Lawler, I'm gonna get it right eventually here.
Yeah,
Chavez.
Chavi. Then you just become the Brad Pitt from Moneyball. Chavi. Yeah. What? He's never been called that in his life.
but I just that's why I like him. I think he's just a guy that fits that gritty character, and I'm for that. And Yeah, it is what it is. He plays a high level position.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly, thankfully, turned the corner on him, and now I'm watching him highly. So if I have a league or two where I'm not looking like a playoff team, and whoever it was that sucked last year to be in a position to draft him this year, if there's a way to make a deal where I can help that team out, that would be my prime target back. Now, that's a very hard to acquire target, of course, but it doesn't mean you're not going to try it out. And depending on how your home leagues are, like in our own home league here, you can only keep one prospect. Realistically, you can keep more, but you only have, I mean, it's a keeper league, so you can keep one. So when we start to see guys picking up players that are 2 years away, 3 years away, you kind of chuckle at it. And that's where Jordan Lawler shouldn't be picked up in those leagues yet. Now, if you're a terrible team and you don't want to have a bench or do any of those things, well, sure, maybe that's the type of guy you go for. But if you're in like a true dynasty where you've got at least 12 minor league spots, in most cases 25 or more, then Lawler's going to be a very hard to acquire guy. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You know, if you are me in a certain league where I'm 8-0 now and ruling the roost, I have the ability to trade away my best assets to keep that going if I think it wins me the league. And if I happen to have Lawler in that league, he would absolutely be on the table to get me over the hump, right? That's an important thing to do. And we'll get into that in future weeks. But my next two picks here, Ty, I went with the arms. I'm behind you on the arms, but since you're trying to make it out like we're building rosters, I already have the catcher market cornered. But I'm going with Jackson Jobe with Detroit, who in the FSL has not been good. He has been, is there an acronym that I can use? SHIT. Yep, that's what he's been so far. 25. No, he hasn't really. 25 Ks in 20 and a third innings pitched, but a 1.4 whip is not great. Again, 20 and a third innings pitched. So he's slow started the year and 11 walks. So whereas Andrew Painter is paintering the corners, it seems like Jackson Jobe is jobing them all over the place. That's not a term. Yeah, sorry.
This is a tough segment here.
Yeah, woof buff. Well, let me get it a little better, and I'll take Jack Leiter, who anyone who wanted to be gooder sooner drafted. You got yourself Jack. Let's see. I'm bringing it back. He's at AA this year, so that's a major adjustment for a college arm to go to AA the year after they've been drafted. 34 innings pitched, 44 Ks. The whip at 1.32. It's early, and that's okay. But here's the thing that I really like, Ty. He's only given up one dinger so far this year, and the ERA, not good, 4.93. But like I said, only given up one. So he's hitting, the ball's getting hit. It's not leaving the yard, which means the contact could be, various weak, poor defense, all those kind of things we talked about, right? You get at AA, the defense isn't always there. You get to AAA, it could be team to team. So I'm trusting that Jack Leiter is progressing exactly as Texas wants him to. And I'm hoping they're thinking 2023 is the year where Leiter can be up. And that could mean a late season promotion to AAA. However, with the numbers that we're seeing here, I have to watch a start or two of his. And thanks to MILB TV, I'll be able to do that.
So with Jack Leiter, the only thing I'm concerned with, in this complete eye test, unsubstantiated, I don't see the eliteness based of his draft position.
Okay.
I see Spencer Howard, right?
Oh, wow. Yikes. Pick a better pitcher. Give the fantasy folks something better. Say Singer. Oh,
no, I see
Casey Mize. Oh, wait.
No, but I see scary similarities. To me, I just there's just guys that you watch and can get major league hitters out, right? And when you watch Jack Leiter, you see a great fastball, but we know major league hitters can hit.
They can hit a bullet. That's what they can hit a bullet, right? They'll time it out eventually.
Ask this Beasley character that got called up to Toronto's bullpen this week. He got absolutely shelled by Buxton, and I don't know who did the damage today, but he got lit up.
Did Kyle Garlick play in that and hurt him too?
Yeah,
Kyle Garlick had a week.
Yeah, Garlick did have a week, but no, it was Larnach. Larnach hit a bomb off. Larnach hit it off of Simber. Sorry, no, who did it? Gary Sanchez.
I was gonna say Sanchez even had a day.
Gary Sanchez hit it off this Beasley character. So but he throws hard. He comes in, he pumps gas. You have to do more than just pump gas at the major league level, and I'm concerned with Jack Leiter for that reason. I I don't see his ability to be a great elite guy at the pro level. And I've said that from the beginning, stayed away from him everywhere. I would have never have drafted him in any format, even if I had the ability to get him at whatever position I was at.
Well,
No
we
chance.
did talk about it before, Ty, how one of the things you can do or talk yourself into within a draft for your dynasty team is you can say, I want to draft the college guys because they're going to be there sooner. You can look at the percentages, as I was doing a couple years ago, and say they have a higher percentage, right? 30+% chance that they're going to be a pro and exceed those limits. Now, that doesn't mean they're a starter. That doesn't mean they're an impactful player. That means they exceed the number of innings, the total body of work, well, under which Spencer Howard would qualify as a success rate. However, if you drafted him, or traded for him or whatever, you would argue the opposite is the case. I'm wondering if when people go out there and they're shopping for the best player at the draft position, if we need to start to incorporate more of the, do I want an ace long-term, or do I want a starting pitcher that might be a trade asset? Because I think if you go ace shopping, you shouldn't be looking necessarily at college pitchers. Doesn't mean they're not going to be good, but a high school guy is going to be able to develop a little further with an MLB team for a little longer than maybe a college arm where they're drafting them to kind of turn them and churn them. To your point with Kyle Garlick, he did have a big week, but sat Saturday and Sunday against Toronto, 4 for 21 on the week, 2 runs, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. All this was earlier in the week, but then he had an offer that hurt him later on in the week, and he was hurt over what he's day-to-day listed as day-to-day. So hopefully he doesn't go on the IL again, because he's somewhat useful. But off topic with that. But yeah, with Leiter, maybe that's something that we'll have to look into when we start to talk about the 2022 draft class. High school pitchers who could become aces versus college pitchers who could become your Spencer Howards.
Yeah.
Like they're the ones who look like the ace today, but realistically, there's 3 more years of development that an Andrew Painter gets to have over a Jack Leiter.
Well, and the big thing for me too is, like, you see these guys throwing the fastball up in the zone. Like, you have to have a certain profile of pitches to make that an effective pitch. And Leiter concerns me from that perspective. Like, it's one thing to dust college bats. It's a total other thing to dust major league hitting. So that's kind of where we're at. So let's kind of keep it going here, Robbie. Only a couple guys left on our board here for the first round. I'm going to take Matt McLean, which I didn't think I would ever do, because if you remember back to our episodes about the draft, like, I was not high on McLean. He's in double. He's got 10 home runs, 39% K rate, 238 average. The complete opposite of what I thought Matt McLean was going to be in the minor leagues. Like, I thought 320, no home runs. Like, he's the complete opposite. So
yeah, he's a three true outcome guy already.
Yeah, like, he's got 12 stolen bases too. Like, again, I'm just shocked you left these 2 stolen base guys up for me. This is so weird that this is happening.
I didn't know we were drafting a team. I thought it just became like an organic draft, and I was like, how fun. And now you're crapping all over my team.
It's because you brought up your truck. But anyway, we're this is a guy that I think will eventually find the hit tool, and I think that, to me, is what I'm attracted to taking him here, is that, like, the power has shown, like, that.
Yeah, so there's signs, right? Yeah.
It could be there. Like, I didn't expect him to make the transition from aluminum to wood and gain power. Like, I just didn't see that coming. So,
and a double-A, right? Like, he's done this This is not a guy who's playing at lower high A, who is just better than the pitchers he's facing, because the age gap will be big. Like, you could take on an 18, 19-year-old today, and tomorrow you're taking on a 24-year-old guy who's never made it out of A-ball. But he's at double-A. So there should be, on overall, better pitchers. But that might be why you see a 39% K rate. Could be the competition he's facing. He gets dusted one day and then lights up some scrub the next.
Absolutely. And then Sal Frelick's going to be my other guy. It's just I have a very similar to the faith that I have in the Boston organization right now. I have a very similar faith in Milwaukee's. I love everything that they're doing over there. That they have so many other guys that are in their system that I like. And, Frelick was a first round 15th overall, and to put him into, some of the J2s that they have, Robbie, like Luis Medina and Carlos Gonzalez, or Rodriguez, sorry. Like, there's an outfield crop in Milwaukee that'll replace the dumpster fire that they have going on there right now. But I really like what they're doing. And so again, very similar to Boston. Like I'm not going to say this is a guy that I would traditionally love,
Right.
but in this
Trust the
scenario where
team.
we're picking some guys, I'm trusting the front office for sure.
And do you have a Rowdy Talese update for everyone? Because you have yet to mention him.
Not today. I'm going to leave it for one more week because I think he played well over the weekend here. So I'm going to not get ahead of myself. But
we thank you.
Rowdy's coming.
We thank you for your service. So my final pick, because there's only 2 guys left from the first round that were somewhat notables. Now, I will say on this list, Colson Montgomery's not on it, Colorado outfielder. There was a reason we left him off. Colorado outfielder. We're just going to wait. We're going to talk about him later in the year. So there were only 2 guys left to pick that I thought a lot of people were kind of talking about in the off season, talking about prospects, first year player draft guys. And the guy I picked is out of Miami. I picked Joe Mack because I wanted a third catcher. I've wrapped up the catchers. Good luck having one of your pitchers throw to somebody, Ty. Idiot, forgot to draft a catcher. He's in A-ball. Just started. I don't know what happened because there's no rookie ball lineup for him. So I don't know if there was an injury or whatever, but the guy's a 300 hitter at the pros and 13 at bats. Also got a dinger. But Joe Mack is somebody who I think slipped in most drafts and should have. A, he's a catcher. And 2, he was one of the final guys in the first round that was picked. So he should slip. That's what happens to those guys. Compensation pick. I'm not sure what the deal was, why Miami had that other pick. Doesn't matter, but that's who they picked up. And I wanted to see how he would progress. I know I picked him up in one league, I think somewhere in like the 60s or something, because he was sitting there. And in another league, he was sitting in like the 90s. And I remember not picking him. And I think it was after I saw him slide that far in the one where when he was sliding in the next, I'm like, just give me a catcher. Every so often you got to make a dumb play. So I picked up Matt because I know the power could be there. So I'm interested to see how he progresses. And the final guy for Utah, you don't have to pick him because he's automatically there, is Colton Cowser with Baltimore. OBP machine at high A. 13 stolen bases is cool, but he has been disappointing for people who thought that he could just hit the ground running. Heston Kjerstad was a guy who 2 years ago, people were like, no, he's not a miss. Baltimore didn't miss. He's a good player. I'm not saying Colton Cowser is a miss, but the early returns of getting on base and stealing bases are good. I'm curious what Baltimore's working on with him.
Can we go back really quick to Joe Mack?
Yeah, hit it up. What's the deal with Mack?
Well, it has nothing to do with Mac, but it's just something that I mentioned last in the offseason, and I stand by. Nathan Hickey is the guy you want to own in terms of Miami bats. And you're gonna love this, Robbie. 32 walks.
Boston?
Yeah, 32 walks in 100 at bats so far this season. So no. They both played at Miami in college.
Oh, played at Miami, but Mac was drafted. Yeah, so then throw Hickey down on the next one, round 2 notables and beyond. Throw him on the next one. Because we're done with Colton Cowser. So Colton Cowser, everybody, just if you got him, and if someone's dangling him in trade, have a really close look, because I don't know that that's a move you want to make today, right? Like the OBP's there. There's some underlying stuff, right? 13 stolen bases. We already know that's not going to translate in MLB. Anyone with stolen bases, it will not translate in MLB at this moment in time. If the game shifts over the next 2 years, if the ball keeps being different from inning to inning, sure. But, just watch. He was like 6 overall. Watch yourself. Anyway, round 2 notables and beyond. Ty,
are we just gonna check you really quick though?
Yeah, I was gonna say I drafted first, so you take Hickey as your first overall in this one, because I'm curious.
We'll go 1 for 1 in this round just so we don't double up. But
sounds good.
Hickey 280, 452, 942 right now.
Wow,
he's at A-ball this year. This is why I said this guy's a hitter. This is the guy that you want fantasy wise. He still has to make it to the pros with a defensive position, but the hit tools are there for me. And so 27 RBI so far in 100 at bats. I'll take that all day, every day, right? Full season, that translates to a very large RBI number. So I like what he brings to the table. I beat that one to death. I now have a catcher, so you shut up about that.
Yeah, but you didn't even get your catcher in the first round.
Brutal. I don't need a catch in the first round. If I ever draft a catch in the first round, I want you to punch me in the face.
Deal. All right, you heard it here on Dingers, everybody. So everyone that's going to be in the round 2 and on, and again, if you don't hear a name that you are interested in or you think is doing really well, I do want to know, because I didn't go through every single player that was drafted. That's like 700 guys, whatever the number was. It was really high. I looked for anyone that had a signing bonus or that I had remembered someone talking about, so that they were a target, and then good or bad. So that's what this particular list is made up of. So the next guy I'm going to take, Ty, is actually somebody who I know you have in one dynasty league, and I'm getting me some Kai Bush, Los Angeles Angels starting pitcher who a couple of weeks ago I talked about him because I was really impressed that he is at Double A, and in 44 innings he's got 47 Ks, which the K to 9 was higher a couple of weeks ago. But regardless, it's still over 1 per inning, 291 average. Love to see that. And a 1.08 whip. Now, these are results. I have not yet personally watched a Kai Bush start. Again, thank you, MLBTV.com. I will be watching that and looking to find that start, because he's also playing for the Rocket City Trash Pandas, which is a team that we've talked lovingly about in the past. So that's my ace for my squad here, Ty. And again, this list is not necessarily made up of all great players. These are guys that either we've talked about in the offseason, we've heard others talk about, they had big signing bonuses, something like that. So it's not players that we deem to be future stars. Some sure, but not all.
Yeah.
Anyway, who's the next guy, Ty?
I'm going to dip in. I haven't had a homer yet, so I'm going to do it now. Ricky Tiedeman is a guy that has skyrocketed on every single board anywhere. If you don't know who Ricky Tiedeman is, you should. You need to go look him up immediately and try to acquire him, because
first pick in the second round, by the way, just for everyone who's curious. He was the first pick in the second round.
He was just promoted high A, 44 innings so far, 68 Ks, 15 walks, 0.71 whip, as Robbie likes to say. This is a guy that was he a JUCO arm originally? I believe he was. I think he was a JUCO arm, and then
I think he's 19. I'm gonna look.
No, he's definitely not 19. He's for sure 100% a college arm. I know that to be.
I've got my MILB.com page set up to Bubba Thompson. I'm always watching the Bubba Thompson stolen.
I know, me too. I'm addicted to Bubba Thompson too. I'm with you on that one.
27 stolen bags, everybody.
Yeah, no, he's. I'm just gonna pull up his minors. He was. No, that's a game log. I want MLB minor league stats.
I'm on it, man. I'm on it.
Interesting. Where did he play college? I can't find it.
I'm Googling it. I am waiting for the page to load.
Oh, he is a 19-year-old. You're right. Okay. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know why I thought that. Okay. Maybe it's because he went to Golden West College.
Yeah. I saw him and Andrew Painter were both in the Florida State. I think both were in Florida State League. And then Tiedeman got the promotion, which I think is one of the cool parts about being part of a Canadian team, is that when you are promoted to high A, you go to Vancouver, beautiful city, and you get to be part. Yeah, and you get to be part of a team that actually sells tickets in minor league baseball. And that's not a slight on anybody else. It's just that it's really cool that the Vancouver Canadians have a tradition of winning as a minor league team. And a lot of guys who become future Blue Jays play there. So it's a really good sign. And he was promoted. They used to be short season A-ball. So when guys got drafted, they would often end up, if they thought the team, it appeared that if the team thought highly of them, they would go to A-ball. And that would be short season Vancouver for the Canadians. But now they're full season A-ball. So it's cool to see Ricky Tiedeman go there. But anyway, K-Machine. I did put the walks, 15 walks. So that obviously is something with age that I'm hoping that will be the thing that consistently doesn't make him highly touted, so that when he improves that, then he becomes
he only has 2 walks since being promoted to Vancouver in 3 starts. So that's more than reasonable. He had 13 in his 6 starts, so 2 and a little for all of his starts at Dunedin. That's in Florida, right? Like, there's wind and other things that happen in Florida that he's not going to experience in Vancouver the same way. So, I think that, exactly. Like, exactly. Right. Like, he might've went to the same parking lot as Reese McGuire, and that kind of made him uncomfortable.
Never forget. Hashtag never forget.
So he's got 19 strikeouts in 14 innings. with just 2 walks. So I'm happy with that ratio, Robbie. Like we'll have to see if that sticks, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, the next guy I've got up is somebody who how I found out about this pitcher was that someone said, "Have you seen him pitch? Have you seen a pitch?" Because MLB was featuring some little 2-second clip of him, and I'm like, "No," and it's Keyshawn Askew, who I think is 6'10" or 6'8" or something. Like he's power forward, center looking guy, but he's a pitcher with the Mets, which is already 4 strikes against you, but I'm gonna forgive it. In 16 innings pitched at high A, he has 20 Ks. Obviously a guy who needs to come into his own within his body, a big guy. So I'm thinking is this a future Randy Johnson here? Because there is not going to be another one. But what can we get? But the whip decimal 6'2".
Oh, this arm angle is pretty.
He just looks like the kind of guy. If you're at all curious, listeners, I know we're a $1.25 into this, but if you are at all curious, pause it now, get this name, and then look it up. Keyshawn Askew, Askew.
Yeah.
He's 0% owned on Fantrax. I'm going to very quickly look. I've got him in one league where I picked him very late just because I wanted to have a few shares of the guy. And it's a long-term project. I don't think this is going to be a flash, get him up quick guy. Interesting though, interesting.
I like it. I like what it could be. I need to watch a little more video than what the small Mets hype clip I just watched, but I like what I'm seeing. The early results are strong.
Yeah,
right?
0% rostered on Fantrax.
But the
however,
results,
I do have them.
Yeah, but last year he just pitched a very little in rookie ball and had success. This year he's at A ball, 16 innings, a 1.13. The K per 9's 11.3. I'm listening. I think there's upside here. This is a new guy on my board.
Yeah, there's been some starts with him
immediately.
Yeah, he's started. He's also come in later in games. I don't
he's
know
a starter.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know what the future will hold. It certainly appears to be a starter. So there you go. And now I've got my 1-2. I got the Kai Bush. I got the Askew coming right up your Askew.
Yeah. You made up for some really terrible picks in the first round.
Because I didn't know we were drafting a team.
I know.
I was drafting guys to talk about. All right, who's your next pick?
I actually don't know. I want to take a shot on James Wood here. I think probably. I don't like this pick. Yeah, I don't like this pick at all. He scares me. But again, I thought Aaron Judge was going to be shit, and he's definitely not. So I'm gonna go with it just so I don't miss out on a second Aaron Judge. And that's my entire reasoning. He's got 3 bombs, 300 average, 22K rate though. That's the one thing, Robbie, I'm excited about because I expected some swing and miss. So in 50 at bats, 22% K rate is acceptable, right? And I think for me, that's the big takeaway. Is that you have a young bat, big body, lots to learn, room to get taken advantage of in the low minors, and he's made some adjustments. So I'm listening. I'm not gonna lie. I'm listening.
Okay, I'm gonna take the devil's advocate side to this just because this was part of the thing we talked about last podcast about Woods. He has not had an at bat in 2 weeks. Yeah. But so take into consideration 50 at bats, meaning that 20% of his season will be the next series that he comes back to. Now, if a team has scouted him and they're like, this is how we think we should pitch to him, the guy could go 0-12 and could have 6 or 7 Ks. And this whole line looks completely different. So what I'm saying is that for everybody who wants to talk negatively about K rates and things that are small sample size, James Wood samples insanely small, 50 at bats. So it's good that he hasn't sucked. That is a good thing. But what I'm saying is that a team that might be ready to pitch against him, who's actually looked into him, he may not have faced them yet. So we need to see a bigger body of work.
I don't disagree, Robbie, but the only thing I'll add to that, though, is we've got to see, let's call it a quarter of a season, right? Between the cup of coffee he got last year at rookie ball and what he's seen so far. So he's got 136 at bats so far.
As a pro,
right?
Yeah.
Yep. He's got 6 bombs and he's hitting 346 in that stretch. Right.
Sure.
His strikeout rate is reasonable, but not great. It's much better this year than it was last year. So I think to kind of take your point a step further, I want to see him come back, and I want to see him maintain that ratio, or at least close to it. I don't want to see him regress to what he did last year, which is 32 strikeouts and 86 at-bats. That's concerning. But if he can take the steps that he has so far this year, and even if he meets between those two numbers, Robbie, I'm going to be a little more excited about James Wood.
Yeah, and that's fair moving forward. Now, the other guy in the second round that people were like, it's one or the other as the best pick of the second round is Lonnie White Jr., who went to Pittsburgh, the outfielder. 31 at bats. So, again, like an injury shortened thing here. And it's at rookie ball. It's not been great. And it's because it's been 31 at bats, right? So you can be really good and everyone says you're elite, but no sample size. But if you're bad, like he's been with a 48% K rate, then what do you say? Well, you say he needs more time. So Lonnie White Jr. was the toolsy, blah, blah, blah guy. We haven't got to see the at bat total yet. So for anybody looking to acquire him, just hold off. It's very much like James Wood in my mind. Just hold off. Let's see more playing time before he's the cornerstone of a trade, because he came into the season with a lot of hype from the guys saying, they'd seen this and they'd seen that within the scouting atmosphere. And it relates to fantasy in this way and that way. Well, we now need to see results, and it's only rookie ball, but we should see a lot of success at rookie ball in order for him to get a promotion, which would now be to low A for the end of the year. That's where we're at with Lonnie White. So who's your next boy up, Ty? What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 targets left, right?
I'm going to take Luca Tresh because I can't see you draft 7 catchers in this little draft. I just can't watch you do it. But also, like, he fits something that I like to monitor. Right? We see 15 home runs his last year at NC State. He would have been a teammate. No, not a teammate. Never mind. I was going to say Aaron Sabato. Sabato was Duke, wasn't he? Anyway, point is, 7 bombs so far this year in ridiculous amount of at-bats for this time of year. 142 at-bats so far.
Full playing time for a catcher.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's a good sign though, right?
Oh yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, 17th round pick, by the way, $400,000 signing bonus, all like above slot for the 17th round. That's why he's on the list.
Yeah, I mean, a guy out of NC State, honestly, that's a major league pick to go that far back's actually kind of interesting, to be honest with you. So NC State traditionally is a baseball school.
And they must have thought he was going back, right? Until KC was like, we'll throw $400,000 at you. And he said, screw it, senior year.
Also has left field on the baseball reference page. So
there we go.
Kansas City did not make the mistake that Baltimore made by leaving a hitter behind the plate.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's do the Adley Rutschman versus Brent Servin update here.
Versus Brent Servin. That's just harsh, but also hilarious. I enjoy that. I mean, he's hitting 137. Adley Rutschman, shocking, right? Like, let's take your best offensive upside guy in your minor league system and put him in the hardest position on his legs. Cool. Anyway, I mean, Brian Servin's been Brian Servin, right?
Brian Servin is batting 276 with an 806 OPS, but it was all basically thanks to a 2-dinger game. He did, however, dinger tonight, baby. 2 for 4. I'll take that. Oh my God. I hope that really helped out in the one league where I was down a dinger. Oh baby. I'm going to look.
Anyway, point is that a catcher with a huge power spike is of interest to me, Robbie. He's of significantly more interest when I find out that he can play another position.
Right.
So that to me is the thing I'm taking away here. And I want to see that moving forward here.
Yeah. The league that I have Servin in, I took it on the teeth today. It was 7-9 in the 16 categories I was losing last time I looked. It's now 10.5 to 5.5. Thank you for nothing with that home run. And that, again, guys, that's why you don't care about the catchers, but you do care about the high K pitchers. And Dominic Hamill of the Mets. What am I doing with the Mets pitchers? I'm cursing myself. He's also an A-ball. What am I doing? 38 innings pitched, 43 Ks, and a 1.44 whip, which needs to be honed in a little bit better. However, Dominic Hamill was a K machine last year. So if we're talking body of work, he so far as a pro has a pretty good body of work with the Ks, the shutting guys down, the doing good things. But he certainly isn't like some locked in ace, but he's somebody that I targeted last year that I heard was going to be one of those quick to the pros guys. So the fact that he's at A-ball now and doing okay tells me I'm hoping the signs are there for him to go to AA this year. And then we could start to talk about him as a 2023 potential guy. Again, that's a long road to hoe, right? When you're at A-ball. But regardless, I am interested in Hamill. I was interested in him in last year. The K's are the calling card for him. It's a matter of basically, I think, Ty, having good defense to help you when you are giving up the contact. And when you're at A-ball, we've talked about it. It could be questionable, right?
I agree.
So there's only 2 plugs left, and neither are what I would consider to be assets right now. But
yeah, I'm not in love with the remaining picks. And I can't abstain. So I'm gonna go with Mason Albright because this Jackson Glenn character that you've beat to death, I'm just not gonna be that guy.
Leave me with that. Yeah, he is the final hockey stick when you cover your eyes and everybody puts the sticks in the middle for road hockey, and then someone just throws the sticks to the right and throws the sticks to the left. He's the goalie stick that no one wants to pick up, but you could feel it. That's now Jackson Glenn. So talk about Mason Albright, who was a surprise $1.2 million bonus out of the 11th round to the Angels.
Yeah, this is a high school arm, IMG Academy prep arm, right? For those of you that don't know the term, it's basically like fancy pants of grassroots baseball. This is a guy that if you're coming out of IMG Academy, you can play a little bit, right? Like that's just a fact. Like you're gonna be a little bit higher profile. Like the 1.2 bonus to me suggests, the Angels are really, really into this guy. They bumped him to A this year, Robbie. He's just turned 19. He's 2.9 years younger. And it shows, right? He's getting absolutely lit right now in 38 innings. The ERA is pretty at 7.75. So he threw 8 innings last year in rookie ball and didn't have a huge strikeout numbers, but, held everybody in check, gave up just 3 hits, 8 strikeouts in 8 innings. So reasonable. But, the walks are definitely creeping in this year, 17 walks in 38 innings. So it's not concerning yet, but we're certainly paying attention to that total. 42 strikeouts though, right? So, the strikeout numbers are still there. And again, this is a 19-year-old arm that's playing against the pros now. So I'm okay with the bump in ERA. The 1.2 bonus suggests that this is a lock to get some high minors time. But I mean, I'm certainly going to take him over Jackson Glenn in this position, Robbie. But at the same time, like I'm not ready to put an endorsement stamp on the lefty here.
Yeah, Albright was, I don't know where, but he was obviously committed to play baseball somewhere in college, and the Angels bought that out from him in the 11th round. And it's interesting that he has gone the route he has, and the Angels put a lot of money into pitchers last year, who this is the third one we've mentioned, with Bachmann and Kai Bush as the 2 others.
This is my kind of body, though. I'm not gonna lie.
He's got the body. He fits your body category.
He does.
So the guy that I'm left with, and the reason that, again, Jackson Glenn, somebody that I talked about because I was trying to figure out signing bonuses, and Jackson Glenn had one of the lowest signing bonuses last year because he had no leverage as a 23-year-old in the draft. He had his first power year in the NCAA. Where did he play? Not important for me right now. 21 home runs was what he did as a NCAA player with a 366 batting average. But then last year as a pro, he had 106 at bats, hit 340 between rookie ball, which he only had, I think, 2 games, 5 at bats, and A ball, where he had 101. So he was good, but he was playing as a older guy, 1.5 years older than the competition. Well, he moved up this year to high A, where he's still 1.5 years older, but the adjustment has been severe so far in roughly the same amount of time. Whereas last year he hit 337 at that level. This year, 1 level up, he's hitting 194, 0 home runs, no power whatsoever from him. And I'm just not seeing what I wanted to, like a 12% walk rate, but a 38% K rate. None of it is paying off. We're not seeing extra base hits. He's only got 3 doubles, no triples, and the solo dinger. So it's not looking good at this moment. You need to understand that when I was talking about him last year, I was saying all this already. This is an absolute flyer with Pittsburgh, right? He came up well, did well in his debut, and we could see good things. So I was never touting him as a high pick, but the fact that I myself mentioned him on the podcast several times, put him on the website, rubbiebaseball.com, and said, this is somebody to consider. That's what you get sometimes when you consider a guy. You don't get it. Mike Jarvis was, I think, the 6th round pick with Pittsburgh. He's having very similar results. These are guys that Pittsburgh did not pay any money to. They just threw him in and thought, how high can we get these guys where they're successful? And it looks like Glenn might be topping out at high A. It happens, right? Probably happens to 250 guys every year. Hopefully he's able to have a better second half and kind of salvage his season. But I don't have promise for Jackson Glenn moving forward based on what we've seen so far.
Well, and I mean, the other thing to keep in mind, Robbie, too, is like when teams acquire a guy like Robbie Glenn, like the other piece of the puzzle
Jackson
is that,
Glenn. You gave him my name. You said Robbie Glenn. How much of that Woodford have you had?
No, isn't Robbie Glenn a former Milwaukee Buck?
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, point is, the thing that I wanted to bring to bear was sometimes when teams acquire these guys, they're making mechanical adjustments, right? And I mean, we've seen this in Toronto specifically with pitchers and Pete Walker letting them do their thing, being like, cool, you go tell me this, and then I'm going to tell you you're wrong, and we'll make a change, and you'll be great. And he's done that a bunch of times. Like, we've yet to see that out of Pittsburgh, but at the same time, like, I'm not ready to give up on anybody after they change organizations. I'm always paying attention to those guys. Like, I make some bank in the trade category with guys that everyone else just are like, it's a dump, right? Like Willie Calhoun, we talked about earlier. Like, it's a guy that I now want to try to get a piece of, right? Because I think there's upside to him leaving Texas. I think that brings in a different conversation. But in the background, I still have this Mason Albright going. There's something here.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you know what he reminds me of a little bit of is like a Grant Holmes build. But I think if he can tighten up the fastball or the curveball slider, whatever this is, I think he could be a very good arm. The fastball is very good. The slider curveball, I'm not as excited about yet, but we'll see. So that's it. Like, hit us up at Dingers. We want to hear you at Dingers Pod. If you disagree with our takes here, or you have guys that you're like, hey, what do you think about this guy that I picked in the X round because he was drafted in the 14th round? Like, let us know. We'll take a peek at him. We'll let you know what we think. We'll see where they're going. But we love doing these recaps, and especially as we enter into draft season or trade season and draft season. Actually, that's coming up too. But we like to analyze this stuff. And I mean, both of us are going to do a lot more research over the next couple of weeks, knowing the draft's coming, but we're also entering trade season as we have enough teams that some of our teams are doing really well. Other ones we need to trade. Like my one team is in complete rebuild. And I'm trying to just pick anything off of the heap that I can to rebuild that squad. So hit us up at Dingers Pod. But until next time, it's been Rob and Tyler here on